Just a ton of pressure today, nationally and really globally, amongst the challenges around the world. The U.S. Congress is in a bit of a deadlock because they can't decide on a House Speaker after Kevin McCarthy's ousting. Well, today is the vote, or maybe the first of many votes, Kevin, in this political drama, combined with a whole slew of existing issues, further fueling, I think, public dissatisfaction with our political system.
Tom, the world looks to the United States for leadership, but Republicans cannot agree on a Speaker of a House, so Congress is stuck in quicksand. And Democrats, they're enjoying the show, cooking up some popcorn and watching, even encouraging division for Republicans. Just makes them look worse. Maybe it'll help them in the next election. Who knows? But these are serious times, and we need Congress to be able to act, so we need a Speaker. Will today be the day? Let's bring in Dave Dulio, Director of the Center of Civic Engagement and Political Science Professor at Oakland University. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, guys. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Jim Jordan and his allies have been working hard behind closed doors, making phone calls, trying to whip up the votes. Do you think he's going to get there, and why or why not?
Boy, it sure seems right now that he's not going to get the votes that he needs, the 217 votes that he needs on this first ballot. There are still enough Republican holdouts for him to not be elected as Speaker. And we'll see if putting the vote on the floor puts pressure on these folks, or if it gets down to just maybe a couple of votes, if Republicans can do some convincing of their colleagues to try and get them across the threshold. But it doesn't look like it right now.
When Steve Scalise realized he didn't have the votes, he said, all right, I offered, have a nice day. Jim Jordan, if they go to the floor and have a vote and it's a no-go, does he stay on and fight, or does he say, all right, next man up?
Well, that's a great question. I think, it probably depends on how many votes he falls short. But we can't forget that Jordan was in the mix when Steve Scalise had he had more votes within the Republican conference than Jordan did last week, and stuck with it to go this second round. So he doesn't seem to be like somebody who would give up on this. But only time will tell, I think.
It's interesting because there's obviously very publicly a lot of division within the Republican Party. I also believe there's quite a bit of division within the Democratic Party, but it's not so public. They're able to demonstrate this Democratic unity when it comes at least to actions within this body, the House of Representatives. How does that Democratic unity, and you've written about this in your recent column in the Detroit News, how does that unity how is that demonstrated or perceived, I guess, by the electorate around the country?
Well, this sort of unity is nothing new in Congress these days. The cohesion among party members is incredible in today's political world. It's upwards of 90% of the time. We've got huge majorities, 90+% of the Democrats voting together, 90+% of the Republicans voting together. And in fact, I would say, Tom, that, the Republicans on this issue aren't that divided, right? I mean, at the start, we had only 8 who came out and voted against Kevin McCarthy 2 weeks ago. We'll see how many votes Jordan loses today. And some of that could be because those members that are withholding their support for Jordan, they may want to try to get something for that. But all of this really goes into what the American public hates about the Congress and politics generally, right? Congress is hovering at 10 or 15% job approval right now. And the bickering, the inability to get anything done, is what drives Americans crazy.
You mentioned, avoid the fringes, the extremes within the party, but, and you seem to support the Problem Solvers Caucus in that, or the moderate positioning, the middle ground kind of approach. But is there enough people in that caucus to gather enough votes to elect the next speaker? I mean, who are the fringes in your view within the Republican Party?
Well, let me say this, Tom. My column in the Detroit News late last week was not advocating for any particular individual or any particular slice, but just offering a suggestion as to how the House might move forward if the Republicans can't come to any agreement, and frankly, if the Democrats aren't willing to help them out and do something for the institution, do something for the country, right? As you said, or as Kevin said at the top, right? The country's looking to America for leadership, and we lack that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what we need is somebody to step up and lead. And if the Problem Solvers Caucus really means what they say that they're going to do, you know, they could not easily, but they might be able to find a way forward for a compromise, middle of the road candidate that actually might be able to govern as Speaker.
So is there a demand letter? Do we know what the no voters on Jordan are demanding, and can the rest of the party cave into their demands?
Well, again, I think, you know, some of that is some of those folks are just against Jordan because it's Jim Jordan, and others, you know, they've got their wish list. I imagine that no one has written that down, and that's a private conversation between Jim Jordan and those individual members.
Yeah, we'd like to read that. If you ever find it, let us know. Is there a ransom note somewhere? Okay, I'll give in if you give me this. You know, Steve Scalise said it well. I mean, he dropped out of the race and he said, listen, this seat should not be about anyone's particular selfish ambition. We need someone who doesn't look for their own political win in this, but someone who's not only going to lead the party, but lead the entire House. In light of that and what Matt Gaetz did on the offset, is there a real risk in your view that we could end up seeing Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat, end up being chosen as the Speaker of the House?
I don't think that's in the cards at all. There's no way Republicans will let that happen. They have the votes that they need to stop Jeffries. They just don't have the votes they need to elect one of their own. Right. And you know, again, Democrats could help out here. And, you know, because they've said for 2 weeks, Republicans need to figure this out. Well, Republicans have. They want Jim Jordan. Right. At least the vast majority of the Republican conference does. So all it would take is for some Democrats to vote present and lower the threshold of votes that Jim Jordan needs to assume the speakership. But, you know, unless they're willing to do that, you know, they're going to bear some blame here as well.
It seems like everybody's fighting for power. Everybody wants the Democrats want the House back. The Republicans are battling for power. For Matt Gaetz and the 7 voting with them, is this about winning back home and getting reelected because this is what their particular voters are demanding, or is this about something else?
I'll tell you, Kevin, I don't know enough about Matt Gaetz's district in Florida to tell you one way or the other on that, but it sure seems like he's more interested in blowing things up rather than moving anything forward, right? If he really wanted to accomplish something, he would have had, and maybe his crew would have had a plan of, okay, we're out with McCarthy and here's who's next. But there's really never been any discussion from those Republican rebels, that voted McCarthy out. Who was going to take over the helm?
Right. Yeah, they needed to look at the second and third step after that initial first step. So today's the vote. It's probably not going to happen in the first round. Do you think there'll be multiple rounds, but eventually Jim Jordan will be chosen as the Speaker?
Boy, had you asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, they'll probably get their act together. But after 2 weeks of round and round and this and that, boy, it's hard to see it resolving itself anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out later today, or maybe tomorrow, or the next day after that, or next week. Dave Dulio, director of the Center for Civic Engagement and political science professor at Oakland University. You can read his piece in DetroitNews.com. Dave, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks. We'll take your calls up next. It's 800-859-0957, 800-859-0WJR.